I'm going to wet most of the doors until like like 2/3 of the doors. Oh no, actually maybe I want to capture the light that's down here too. And yeah, I think that's my ultramarine blue. This is my Hansa yellow medium. This is my quinacridone red. Yeah, I think that'll work. So I'm putting them all down in the palette and making small puddles of them. I'm just gonna lay it down, being pretty loose with it. Generally, I know how far I want to go in each direction. So remember, I want them to be pretty bright. I want the reflection to be pretty bright. We're trying to maintain luminosity, right? So
Yeah.
I don't want to put too much pigment down. I think that's a good amount. I cleaned my brush. I'm going to grab some of the yellow, putting that in there, knowing that it might just mix, it might become a greenish. That's okay. And I'm drying my brush pretty well in between so that I'm not introducing more water, which could create those blooms. And I'm letting it spill a little bit off the edge of the doors because it's actually reflecting off the interior of the frame. See a little bit of like a orange, so I'm going to use my new gamboge and put over here on the left side. Just put a dab of it on the yellow as well. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. And we're going to try to deal with the outside portion. I'm already seeing an application to use the Indian yellow for that threshold metal piece on the floor, um, and also maybe for the sign. And it's hard to see, but I think I'm not sure if that's shadow. It may not be shadow, actually, but um, the marble, there's like this pretty defined line at the top. Yeah, I don't think that's shadow.
On the frame part, you mean?
Um, on the wall itself, like if you go up, there's this edge here. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's just coloration of the marble. Um,
Looks like shadow from my perspective, but you might have a better view of it.
yeah, it's interesting.
But why would it have just shadow on the perfectly on that piece?
Right. Um, I'm going to assume I'm not going to try to replicate that because I think that will be confusing. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm just going to go with like the darker area.
There's definitely some shadow on the horizontal
Uh-huh.
piece at the top of the door.
That's
There's
right.
definitely a shadow.
Yep. And that looks cooler. Um, so I mean, this may just call for my trusty. It may be burnt sienna, maybe. What's a light burnt sienna? Let me see here. Wonder if that will work. Um, I think that could work if I'm just like kind of leave it spotty. Um, yeah, the trick here is it covers so much surface that I'm going to get the entire page wet, and it cuts into our time. But I'll try not to be too wet, I guess. I realize I don't want too much of it below because I want to have some reflections from the door. I'm wiping away a little bit.
I've noticed even when you're putting in just a wash as a sort of a background, sometimes you'll use that even that as an opportunity to start noticing value or noticing shadow.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Like I'm noticing here, there's this burnt sienna can spill into these edges here, the interior of the frame, but I don't want it to be completely covered because we want to let some areas remain pretty light, so it looks like it's reflecting from the door.
Hmm.
In about 2 minutes, let's sign off and then log back in.
Okay.
I'm going to try the Indian yellow. Let's see actually if that works or not. Might be too yellow. Oh, I don't know. I'm just doing it spottily here. So it's drying pretty well. I try not to soak it too much. Um, just for fun, I'm going to do the dark area at the bottom, the molding, and I'm going to go with my go-to dark combination of late, which is my Indian Throne blue and burnt umber. You notice I'm using the flat brush because it's just a little bit easier to maintain these straight lines.
Mm-hmm.
Although my hand is a little unsteady right now, so yeah, just laying that down. It's not the right tone yet because it's pretty wet, but I'll come back to it and saturate it a little bit more. Um, might be slightly too large, but so I'll let that dry a little bit before I go back in and saturate it some more. Um, the threshold and that sign above, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre to it. See if that helps make it feel a little bit more like bronze. Go back to the small round brush to add a little bit of shading here in the bottom of the little hard, steady, it's a little far away from me. All right. I'm going to deal with some of the shadow here that's under the horizontal part of the frame at the top. I'm going to go back to the burnt sienna, which I was using for that, and gray it down by adding a blue. Let's see here. Um, keep a steady hand. Hold your breath. Yep, I'm trying to leave some white space down there because there's still reflections, or it's not in shadow. So, and then where else can I go with this? Um, Actually, I'm going to switch brushes because I want to do the underside of that frame just above the door. Um, oh, wrong color. And I'm going to be careful to leave an edge exposed to the light here. And this ultimately is a straight line across. And the shadow here is narrower on the left side of the door because that door is closer to us slightly. There's some irregularities on the door, so just kind of, it's okay to have some strokes there that show some raised surfaces or uneven quality.
Undulating.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize the doors themselves actually they're beveled on the right and left side too, so that's interesting.
Mm.
So I'm actually adding a bit of
Oh, right. Yeah, I see that now. Is that going? Is the flattest surface the biggest amount of the surface, and then the bevel goes away from that?
yeah. But that's kind of tricky to show. Um,
Yeah, really tricky. It's very subtle.
yeah. Then I want to go in here to this lighter area and add a very thin line that goes across so it shows the recessed shape. And this will be a little bit hard because normally I would turn the paper so that I can.
This is where the metal meets the marble.
Not yet.
Okay.
That's like there's an outside edge uh, in the
Oh, I
marble.
see where there's an articulation.
Yeah,
I see what you're talking about now. Yeah, it's the marble frame, and there's like a bevel, like a two different layers of
exactly.
it. Uh-huh. I see that.
And then there's a line up here that's like, yeah, this is challenging if I'm not able to move the paper, but it's enough to like just hint at
Mm-hmm.
because not everywhere you're not going to see the full line anyway because the way the light is, the direction of the light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to try to do some of the interior of the door because I think the doors are pretty dry now. Um, I want to do wet on wet to keep keep the colors pretty soft. We don't want a lot of sharp, we don't want really any sharp lines to the colors. Actually, this is too sharp here. So I'm gonna wet an area here. And some of these shadows I'll resolve them better once I've done more of the details. Um, of the doors, of the elements on the door. For now, it's kind of just like laying down the background, which will provide us some context.
Can you see your pencil mark squares?
Yeah, it's very light, but I can see them just enough. Just enough. That's another reason why I'm not trying to be too dark right now on the doors. But you'll see, it doesn't take a lot to really make the doors pop. Once I let this dry a little bit, I'm going to go in and do some of the finer lines, the dark areas, the shadows, and I think it will start to come together in a nice way. I do want to introduce some of um, I'm going to go with yellow ochre. It's like this. In the bottom of the door. I'm not too much because I want to keep it pretty bright.
That's a reflection of the floor.
Yeah, so I want to have some yellow ochre here to show the floor, but I also want to leave space here for the brightest areas that are reflecting the light coming in from the lobby. Um, so I got to make the side area darker, a little bit darker. This middle area, I need to make that darker. This area in here in the frame is slightly darker than the wall, the walls. So just going to fill it in a little bit more. So again, the key here is to let just enough brighter areas show through, continue to show through, despite all the successive layers we're doing here. And I think the reflective parts of the door, it's going to work once I start filling in, um, basically doing some of the line work that's on the door, the doors themselves. Also, I'm going to go here and just extend the reflection by filling in the dark area. I'm making it spotty to match the nature of the marble floor. And lifting straight up and down so that kind of matches the shape of the doors. That helps. And even the center line of the doors actually leaves a reflection too.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was a reflection or if that was like a seam in the marble.
No. Yeah, it's a reflection. There is a seam of the tile, it's marble tiles. There is a
Hmm.
seam there, but I don't think you can see that. Well, you can zoom in and see the line, but the darker line is the reflection.
Hmm.
Yeah. So just to be extra safe, because I want the values here to be the values of the shadows on the doors. I want them to be pretty close to what I need them to be before I start putting in some of the line work. There's a pretty sharp edges, but I'm going to lift and massage out a little bit. Get more paper towel. Okay, I'm just softening the edges here. It makes it feel more like a reflection.
There's kind of a Rorschach feel
Yeah,
of on the two sides of the door, like
yeah.
whatever image it is, it looks like a kind of a, it looks like somebody like standing there with their arms folded or
Right,
something.
right. While that's drying, I'm going to just do the edge over here. I really should have made this. I'm going to see if I can lift off some of this. Might be hard. I'm going to cheat it a little bit. Make it look like an edge by lifting a good amount, as much as I can without ruining the paper. And then extending this dark area up just a bit. Now that dark line I just put down is in the right place. Let's see what happens when we work on. I'm going to pick a drier, relatively drier area of the door to work on the squares. So this is what happens when you start filling in some of the outline. Just careful to notice where the shadows are, when there are double lines, where it's darkest. Do the circle. Paint circle in the middle. So that's one. I should have done the one on the left side first. Just using the pressure, I'm varying the pressure to make a lighter line and then a darker line. Darker line is in the inside. Yeah, I'm basically holding my breath. little harder to see. I'm going to start with the circle first. We're getting close. I think that'll really start to come together once these. Just following where, whatever lines I can still see, trying to grab those first. Yeah, being very loose with it now. As long as you get 2 or 3 of them that look okay, the others don't have to be perfect.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to put in this center line. And note how the door on the left sticks out a little bit more. Some of these things need to be darker. Also, I should do the center area of the circles. Very loose now. It almost doesn't even matter. Because they're all just helping to convey this idea of reflections. Once those dry, I'll add in like the individual pie pieces, like some of them, just to hint at what's going on. Um, let's see, what else? I want to make that top horizontal piece darker. As we're doing these values throughout, things will pop out as like, it's not dark enough. And as we make things darker, the light areas will pop out more. I think one last thing I want to do with the outline is just give a little bit more definition on this outer edge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I also want to make those black moldings darker. And I want to make this area a little bit darker too. And then I'm going to add a little slight shadow before the threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And I see these are mostly dry. I'm going to start putting in some of these. Being a little bit random about them. I should have made these a little bit, I should have used the Indian yellow on these, actually, to make them a little bit more brass-like. Adding a little bit of shading in certain areas. A little bit of like weathering. a little bit more character to to the reflected areas. Just so there's not a ton of like white areas untouched. All right. I think I'm at a good stopping point there.
Yeah, that's a challenge, man. Oof. That's good though.
Make these a
I
little
think
bit
that's I
softer.
think that's hard to portray that the metal tint and the light off the metal tint and I want to see that. I want to see that like from 10 feet.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think you really challenge yourself. Seems really hard to do.
You kind of have to envision the end and just like force yourself to get through this. It's so much of it comes together towards the end, I think,
Hmm.
you know? Yeah, okay. I think I'm gonna get stopping point now.
Cool.
Awesome.